to change your thought process. So this is really to invoke thought as we go through the discussion. And as we talk about information security and what we're discussing, I really encourage interchanges of discussion. I want you to talk to me and have an opportunity for a free flow of information. But before we get started, concerning a new paradigm, it's almost like a recovering addict. You get the person that you have a problem. So that's why we're going to talk about reality statements. And I want to lay a foundation for us to discuss this. And whether you agree or disagree is up to you, but you may disagree with everything. None of this is somewhere in between, but we'll discuss it. And if you have a question about what happened on the board, we'll certainly entertain those questions. So reality statement number 1. Do you truly know your threat agency or organization? That's a good question, because historically, we built this perimeter around our organization. And in IT, we want to control that perimeter. It's a hard shell. We feel like that perimeter is giving us this false sense of security, but it's a false sense of security. Because we have a firewall, we control who comes in and out of our organization. And you see the horseshoe crab there. Everyone's ever been to the aquarium? You see the horseshoe crab? It's hard on top, right? We're going to see what happens when you turn mobile later on. But what is the reality? Consumerization of IT. The walls have fallen. The walls of Jericho have fallen. And so consumerization of IT consists of a couple of components. I think most of us in this room have had some sort of discussion. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Mobile workers, BYOD, mobile devices, advanced persistent threats. Who's familiar with that term? APT. One person, 2 people? Anyone else? Basically, and you've probably heard the description and not necessarily understand what the acronym means. Someone sitting inside your organization, looking around, undetected, and they're waiting. 6 months, 9 months, a year. And that's the MO of hackers today. They're not defacing your public website, looking to steal your information. These are sponsored by criminal organizations, government, or rogue hackers looking for money. And of course, the cloud, right? So this is an interesting study from this. Verizon publishes this every year. And it talks about a third of the breaches in the past 2 years from insider attack. Later on in that statement, it goes on to mention that most of those are malicious. Now, there are some instances where someone may post something inadvertently that creates a breach, but the key is, where are your threat agents? Are you familiar with them? And this helps epitomize where we are with consumerization of IT. 2008 was a landmark. We see Barack in the center. We see all the things that we may or may not see in our organization, but most of us probably use this in our personal lives, maybe in our work environment. So we see the consumerization of IT. That goes to show what population is going to be working from home. How many of us work from home regularly now? That's it? Slow adopters, huh? I work from home every chance I get. Get much more work done. If you're not working from home, you need to look at that. You're going to get much more work done at home. So it talks about that horseshoe crab that's turned over. Gartner predicted 5 years ago this would be one of the biggest problems the IT department would have to contend with. Where we are halfway through that. How many of us are contending with consumerization of IT issues? How many of us listen to webinars every other month about BYOD, consumerization, social media? I'm sick of hearing it personally. I really am. But we have to deal with it. I'm writing our social media policy and our BYOD policy now, so I have to deal with it. Reality statement number 2. Oh, that's cold, isn't it? Hackers are smarter than we are. Do you believe that? See, wow, I thought it was throwing some tomatoes at this point. Yeah. This is interesting. Now, let's look at that. Now, I made that statement, but when you think about this, how many of us know how to mitigate malware, viruses, or botnets? Do you know how to mitigate those things? Is that tough? It may be a pain in getting rid of it, but we got the tools to do that, right? What about denial of service attack? You know how to mitigate those? Pick up a firewall, right? Not rocket science. What about distributed denial of service attack? Who knows what that is? A few people. Who knows what denial of service attack is? More people. So denial of service attack is basically a hammer your systems so they can't respond anymore. Right? They bring your resources down. And it's normally a one-to-one attack. One workstation hammering your servers or your routers, whatever. Now distributed denial of service attack is a little tougher. It's like this whole room on this side sending me little bitty packets at one time. It's not enough traffic for me to really notice and pick up because they're little bitty packets. But it's enough to make me not respond anymore. It's a little more stealthy, a little slicker. Trojans, worms, we got this, right? No big deal. So that tape is really valid at this point. And you look at these solutions, these are all the solutions you can implement to deal with this. And if you think about it, firewalls. How long have firewalls been around? What generation are we on firewalls? Next. Generation 2. It's commoditized to a certain extent, the first generation. IPSs. Next. Second generation. Who has a web content filter in this room? Everybody. Who has a Web 2.0 web content filter? Some? Another. Next. These solutions are next generation. We've got a good handle on these. If you don't have Web 2.0 content filter, I would really strongly look at that. Data leakage, encryption, all these things, commoditized. But that's not why they're smarter than we are. Who's heard of OWASP? Anyone? Any programs in here? No programs. One program. Heard of OWASP? You have. One person. OWASP, this is a great organization. Check it out when you get home. Open Web Application Security Project. They got together, nonprofit organization. Their goal is to raise awareness in the application security space. It's a great website, a lot of interesting information, but this is the kicker. OWASP Top 10. Who knows how to mitigate a SQL injection? One person. Cross-site scripting. Ever heard of it? Two people. How do you mitigate that? If your answer is a web application firewall, that's got to be kind of. How do you mitigate that? Anybody take a stand? People raise their hand. Either one of those.
Write code that's not openable.
And there's a process to do that, right? It's not that easy.
That's cool.
And test for it. Thanks. Guess what? Hackers know these things upside down, frontwards, and backwards. To illustrate that point, I brought a hacker into our organization. Brilliant guy. Brilliant. Had a room full of IT people, application people. He sat and demonstrated all 10 of these. And we were floored. It's scary. He showed us when he hacked into a hospital, he was paid, white-hat hacker. 2 days. I said, well, how long did it really take you? 4 hours. He had documented everything else. Right through the front door. No information. They said, hack our site. They give them IP addresses, host names, nothing. They know this stuff cold. And I'm not talking about script kiddies who go out and download some of the internet. We're talking about hackers. So there is a difference there. But the percentage of people who can do this are very small. It's not a large percentage. So far, is everyone accepting these realities? Any discussion about that one way or another? Hackers can't be stopped. I said that to our finance department, from our CFO, deputy CFO, and all the staff. I can't stop them from hacking. There's absolutely no way. There's no way. And to illustrate that point, this is a report, the software security report. Great report. 51% of companies were hacked last 18 months through an application. 71% of those breaches, they didn't have the right security technology. They didn't do anything about it if they wanted to. Someone mentioned testing, writing the right code and testing. SDLC, that's something we fool around with a lot in IT, SDLCs. PMs like it. Infrastructure people don't. I don't even know what the acronym is, right? Maybe we do. Yeah. Well, you're a CIO, you don't have it. 41% of the companies didn't even follow security guidelines. And these are large companies, these are not small companies. DOD, 2009, 40,000 security cyber attacks in the first half of the year. Guess what their budget is for technology? Got a guess, Anthony? It's a lot, isn't it? $38 billion. We had a class yesterday, and they said that you should allocate 10% of your budget for technology.
Reported budget, maybe. Reported budget.
Thank you, reported budget. Yeah, I did go on their website and pull it down, so you know how they roll, right? 10% should be allocated for security basis on surveys, right? Guess what theirs is? It's split that. 90%. Can we compete with that? No. It's astounding, isn't it? They spend almost $35 billion to secure their environment. They can't stop hackers from hacking in their system at that number. Now, this isn't the scary one. This is just laying down. This is the reality of the world we live in today. How many resources can you commit? How many of us have a dedicated security person? One. So if Anonymous decides to hack our sites, they commit 5 resources. We can't compete, can we? First of all, you have to go there hacking. The other thing, too many threats to secure. Wow. I had to face this problem. Do you need to say any more? Right? That's our life, isn't it? Everything, much less security. So, and the point of this is to help us to appreciate, where we are today. And this is from me going through a process of several years trying to secure the environment in the city of Raleigh. That's where I work. I'm the IT security manager in the city of Raleigh. We have 3,000 employees, 2,500 employees coming seasonally, come in, leave. We have 100 remote sites, 300 production servers. This goes on and on and on. We're one of the largest cities in the organization, but what's unique is our challenge is very similar. It just scales differently. The culture is different, and that's key. So the paradigm shift, this is what we're here for, right? So here's some thoughts. Is this anything really new? Business drivers must be a priority. We have to align with the business. That's key. Because you look at that haystack, if you look at it from an IT perspective, it's overwhelming. With business alignment, we hope to take that haystack to a more manageable level. Now this is IT. We talk about IT security. It's really just protecting systems, keeping systems up and running, backups, antivirus, make sure malware isn't there, things aren't destroyed. But what we're talking about is information security. And information security is business aligned. It's holistic. Distributed roles and responsibility in the organization. IT does not own information security alone. It's a shared responsibility. Because that needle in a haystack is not sitting in the IT department's back. And the reason why is, look what we have to protect. Hard copy, electronic, transmitted business processes. If you're writing a social security number down on a piece of paper, that's information security. Now granted, we have to be mindful of who we're talking to here. We had a couple of people raise their hand that have dedicated IT people relative to security. So is it reasonable for everyone in this room to look at this? No. The goal is one, we talked about thought-provoking. The other thing is, what can you take away from this discussion back home? And this isn't realistic. This is a holistic view of information security. What we want to talk about later on is takeaways. What can you take away to implement where you are? And we're going to talk about that more specifically. And if you look at, CISSP, ISC squared, these are different domains. Most of us work in maybe 1 or 2 of these, right? Anyone working more than 2 of these domains, or have worked in 2 of them? Anthony, you have a couple people there. If you're infrastructure, you're probably working in telecommunications and maybe type of security architecture, Hopefully no one's working in law. Sorry, Brandon, that's our lawyer. And this is from our policy. And this shows a holistic view of information security. It's not talking about systems, it's talking about assets. We're to protect those assets. Any questions so far? Anything? This is a maturity model. self-assessment where you are organizationally. This is best driven from the top. It's difficult driving through the middle. It's a top-down approach. Everyone is level 4 and level 5. It's a tough job. That's pretty straightforward, right? We're not calling the shots anymore. Had a discussion with the CIO a few minutes ago. Had a discussion with a couple CIOs yesterday. You know, business units, if they're not, they're going to start driving what we're putting out there. IT is a service today, isn't it? If we're not looking at ourselves as a service, we maybe have a job. If we're not providing a service to our departments, we may not have a job. That's something to think about. So if that means that IT is no longer making all the rules, who's making the rules? We talk about that shared distributed responsibility. Stop the dog. Stop scaring our departments with tech talk. If we want them to consider us trusted advisors, we need to start talking their language. When they come to us with problems, we don't want to scare them away with acronyms, firewalls, IPSs, VPNs, and everything else in SIMs. We really need to stop. And I say that because I'm endeavoring right now to reach all the departments, and when you come and sit down with them, it's difficult because they automatically feel like you're going to marginalize what they know about technology. Because historically, IT departments have marginalized them. You start making demands, and what do? We go into tech talk, right? We lose them, shake them up, get them off the game, and they go away frustrated. So we need to stop that. Stop saying no to everything. We need to become enablers. We're going to talk about that too. Does the remediation fit the risk? How many of us look at different articles and see what's going on and say, you know what, we have to do that here. We have to lock everything down. Does it fit the risk? Does the crime fit the time? How much of our information is public record? A lot, right? Why are we trying to lock it all up? We talk about that needle in a haystack. Why are we trying to lock up all that information if it's public record? And we want to protect it so it remains available, remains intact. But do we have to lock it up to the extent of what we're seeing in these articles? You know, I read a lot of articles, I read them all the time, and progressive information security specialists help us to appreciate that you have to adjust to the culture and the risk level of your organization. Now, who sets that risk level in the organization? Anybody want to take a guess? It's a funny question, isn't it? Do we? I don't. Thank you, Ernest, you can. Because I'm in a silo. I don't understand what the risk level is. So who really sets that risk level? Our business units. Think about this. If there's a breach in your organization that's financial related, are you going to be talking to your newspaper? Who is? You had your hand up? You are? Are you public affairs?
Yeah.
Okay. CFO?
Anything that we do.
Yeah. I just interviewed public affairs. And the point is, the IT department, we're not the ones that have to answer to the public when something goes wrong. Really, it's who's accountable in the organization. Now, the CFO, public affairs, they're going to be the ones that are getting interviewed. That should be indicative of who sets the risk in the organization, the ones who are accountable. Those are your senior leadership. The business units set the risk. They set the risk tolerance in the organization. If the finance department is okay with letting everybody in finance have God rights in a financial application, whose responsibility is that ultimately? Theirs, right? We're the gatekeeper. We're custodians. You want access, God's rights, and here's the policy. You accept that risk? Okay, fine. It's on you. Too many times, folks in IT try to dictate to the business units what the risk tolerance is when they're the actual owners of the system. And that's something I have to fight internally with my staff as well. Understand what's important. some of the things I think can be takeaways. We talked about that needle in a haystack, all those things that we have to try to secure. But really, do we have to secure everything? Understand what's important to your organization. So you think about your home. You have a safe. Everybody have a safe in their home? How big is your safe? Right? It's big enough to keep your stuff. Is it big enough to keep every document in your house? No. A couple of reasons why. Cost. Now, who wants to move that thing? Right? They're heavy enough. Take that simple principle and apply it to your information. Do we have to secure everything in the organization if it's not simple? It really helps to take this approach with the scoping exercise of securing your information. I sat 9 months trying to figure out how to secure all that information, and that light just went off in my head. I'm like, good Lord, what am I doing? I wrote this data classification policy. I need to use it. So we have an ERP system. We spend a lot of money on the ERP system. It's already sitting behind an F5 load balancer. Wow, that was easy. We have some other systems we spend a lot of money on. What's important to your organization? Brandon can tell you. ERP is a sickening acronym in our organization. We hear it so much, so you know that's what it is. We went to departments, we talked to them, we found out. What else is important? We went to departments. We're concerned about public affairs. An internet site. That's pretty standard, right? A PCI environment. Helped our Parks and Rec department, one of our biggest PCI processing departments in the organization. So we went out and we talked to people and found out what's important to the organization. That helped me scope. I got so much value for the dollar. So much value for the dollar because the scoping exercise really got simplified. And if you think about it, not only does it increase your budget, but the resources and support. You know, all of us are hearing terms like doing more with less, scale of economies, downsizing, budget cuts. It's not just money. How many of us have lost staff? We're all facing that. So if you minimize the scope, it helps you from a soft cost perspective as well as a hard cost perspective. And this was the data classification. This is the segment. This gives you an idea of where I was looking at, where I share with departments, help them to help me understand what's concerned to them. I use that. Again, the goal is to take things away from here that maybe you can use in your environment. I have a different view for security. To me, it's an absolute enabler. Absolute. If it wasn't for security, unfortunately, you guys will take advantage of this. I can't believe that. You cannot work from home. There'll be no VPN access. You cannot go to the gas station, use your credit card, not do web banking, not have all the other conveniences you have because of security, because those things have enabled you to have a more convenient lifestyle. So if you change your thought process of security and say, instead of no, let's try this, it'll help your approach. You'll gain confidence in your department. You'll become a trusted advisor. There are no more best practices. If a vendor comes in talking about best practices, I'll stop them right there and say, there are no best practices. The book has been rewritten. There is no book. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to secure environments that have been secure for many, many years in the same fashion. There is no model today that one size fits all. There is no industry standard anymore. You have to adjust to your culture, the demands of your culture, and what your customers are looking for. You have to adjust to your risk tolerance level for your organization, even down to the departmental level. Public affairs, HR, finance, sanitation, they have totally different risk levels. They look for very different things. They have different needs, different services in the organization. You have to make that adjustment, and it's tough, it's challenging. There are 20 some odd departments in the city of Raleigh. I have to tailor my speech for 20 some odd different groups. But once you become familiar with what the goals are, what they're trying to achieve, it is very easy. So there are no more best practices. Once you secure what's critical to your environment, look at your culture, look what's going to make them more empowered to do their job. Look at self-service. We're trying to work on self-service in our organization. Empower them. Raise awareness. These are some of the program goals that I set forth for us. If you're looking at security in your organization, if you're in a position to do so, set goals. Short-term goals, long-term goals. Think about things like data classification. Try to identify what's critical to your environment. Educate people if you have an opportunity to. You should have an education awareness program. It's difficult, but at least get them in when they're coming in the door. You might not be able to do everything here, but you should have some policies. It's difficult to have no policies in the organization, at least PCI policies. Governance may be a challenge. That's a top-down approach. You can try to exercise different strategies for governance, finding people who are sensitive to what you're trying to accomplish. Look for champions in different departments. It's a process. It takes a long time. We have the technology nailed down. There's some new things out there. One thing I did find out that was interesting with security was when it came time to look at different solutions, generally look at storage. You know, you have the big players. We all know who they are. Look at networking gear. You have the big players. We all know who they are. Same thing for virtual environments and the run of it. Security is a different animal in that it's very competitive. I've never seen so many companies sitting in Gartner's and Azure White Project for the same solution. It was interesting. It was tough to shake out who you should look at in security. So you might want to look at different strategies, find ways to shortlist different security companies. So we standardized a particular platform for our antivirus. I don't forget what it was, but we standardized on it. And there's a lot of technology partners that are standardizing and using this company. So that helped me shortlist a lot of the organizations or companies I was looking at, because if you're a partner with this particular vendor, you automatically got shortlisted. So I can take 10 very solid, very strong solutions down to 3 like that. And then that helps the evaluation process. If you're looking at SIM, a lot of great SIM solutions out there. Again, find ways to shortlist that may be appropriate for your organization. So what you want to really do, avoid point solutions. Look for solutions that consolidate services, because point solutions really increase your administrative overhead. They also become more expensive. Many of these next generation solutions are consolidating services. Questions?
Trevor, you mentioned self-service a couple slides back. What do you mean by self-service when working in this department?
Yeah, one of the big things, pays for self-service. I think that's an easy given. Also, kind of empowering them with like a knowledge base. You know, finding ways to push out. So, for example, if you want to register your iPhone or whatever with the MDM, we're looking at a self-service solution that's easy for them to use. Because, you know, we talk about BYOD, and I think there's a presentation over there. I think he said added 20 hours a week. Was that right? And that's for, you know, Catawba County. How much overhead would that add to the city of Raleigh? You know, so we want to find ways to kind of maybe have them remote like their own device. Just kind of pushing some of that out as much as possible. Also, access management was an issue in our organization. And, you know, I think when you start maturing, you can start pushing out where maybe they have more control of their access, their control of who has access or not. That's kind of a mature model. But we're definitely trying to move in that direction.
Trevor, you had mentioned about the antivirus, and we pretty much got that kind of locked down secure. But most antivirus is only like 80% effective.
Yeah.
And then you got stuff that flies under the radar that you don't even know what's going on. Not that you have a SIM, we just recently implemented the SIM. And we're starting to see where you have bottlenecks and all kinds of things, and maybe sending information back or trying to do that, but we never do it with our antivirus solution. So I just wanted to say that in terms of antivirus, there's still a gap there. There's still, you know, you have to deal with data.
That is true. So, you know, what you really want is security and data-related security. So you couple antivirus, and I think I asked folks how many people have a web content filter that's Web 2.0 enabled. That's another way. If you do not have a web content filter actually looking at the reputation of a site on the internet, block it for you to get there, and also that can see inside of what 80 traffic. And if you have the ability, HTTPS traffic as well. And that can be a pain in the butt. And you have to be careful with things like HIPAA and credit card information, or financial information. But that's the big black hole. You can't see inside of HTTPS traffic. It's a tunnel right through your network. One-to-one. You can send anything in one button, it's like you travel on that. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, in K-12, we have an unenviable position that most of our hackers are inside the gate. Do you have any recommendation on, is there an appliance that we can put on our network that's very cost effective, that will just let us know what's going on? Because, I mean, when we see two AP math students in the back of the lab huddled together, generally we kind of look at that and say, what's going on? And we can see this now. Now with wireless networks and all the obscure places students can go, we have hackers inside the gate with more knowledge than we have, with their own devices. How do you know what's going on in your network in certain appliances?
Yeah, there was a couple of things. So I was facing a dilemma. We have 100 remote sites. It's impossible for us to manage who connects to the network to these remote sites. So there are NAC solutions, network access control, and those solutions look at a workstation and they can profile workstations. So they can validate whether it's a authenticated workstation or it's a non-authenticated workstation. And if it's a non-authenticated workstation, they can put them into a quarantine area where you can do whatever you want. You know, that's one way. Another way is looking at a SIM. Now, NAC solutions are expensive. Security information event management system. So what a SIM basically does is it correlates your logs from disparate sources, routers, firewalls, servers, Active Directory, and it normalizes the traffic. So you can get a very good picture of what's going on at one time across your whole enterprise. And it allows you to identify malicious, but they can be expensive. Yeah.
We got $7 a kid, save fun.
Now, there are some, maybe some other solutions.
Yeah, if you end up hiring somebody to plug into your network just like they can, that was one of the best things we did. We had the same issue with public libraries, and you had all the kids in there going after school. They use it for daycare, and they were trying everything they could do on those machines. So it was interesting. Every time the machines, we reboot the machines every time they went back to a clean install. But having a professional come in and do everything they're going to try is one of the best ways to find out what you're vulnerable for.
What did you
recommended professionals?
We do. We're from
There's a lot
Virginia,
of guys
though.
that charge $175 an hour
Yeah.
that don't know their game as well as you do.
We had a
There's
vendor-
someone state contract that might
Yeah.
be able to help you with the cost. Yeah. I don't think I can say anything. But did you find a cheap, you know, unfortunately, a cheap part, you know, we had, because of the breadth of what we had to kind of deal with and the volume, we couldn't really go to an inexpensive route. I did have to pick my poison where I invested in. The thing I invested a lot of money in was the next generation firewall. And that might be something you might want to look at because it's not going to solve so much problem to your system, but the next generation firewalls are application aware. And
But
they
isn't that outside coming in?
it can be inside as well.
Yeah.
So what I did was I secured my core. I got a data center class firewall for inside my network. And it's designed to handle, you know, 2 gig of throughput, but you can get a smaller one, you know, at least to detect. The first thing you have to do is, you know, think about this. Detect, protect, detect, remediate. You may fall down on the protection, but if you can detect, then you can remediate. And it's easier to detect things and try to fix them. It's tougher to protect things.
When you talk about risk, I think what we have a situation is protecting the data that could be just deleted.
Yeah.
And it just occurred
was the question?
The question was, how can you kick off a security awareness program when you have challenges with senior level buy-in? So that's a great question. So what I started doing, and this goes into change management, finding people in the departments who might be sympathetic to security. Hopefully they're maybe line managers, and talking to them, getting them to talk about what the security concerns are for each department, capturing that information. So I have 5 questions I put together. I got them from NIST. They had about 30. I took 5. And the question centered around really what's important to you as a department. Because when you talk to senior level management, if you talk to them about generic security, it won't mean a hill of beans unless you talk to them what's in it for you. And those managers or those staff or those power users or whoever, they know the challenges of the department. So when you approach senior level management, your message is curtailed to what's in it for them. And they have to understand that what's in it for them and what's at risk for them. And it's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight if they're not very receptive to that. So what I did was I got with departments, I've interviewed them, I talked to senior level management, it's curtailed. So I'm like, wow, you know something about what we do and our challenges. And then I expressed the risk that they may have based on the information I have, and that's how I've been able to get them involved. Had a great meeting with finance, great meeting, because we went through a few projects with them, so I was able to talk to the internal auditor who was in the meeting, our risk manager who was in the meeting, our deputy CFO, our CFOs, you know, and we were able to talk about things that were relevant to finance. That really helps the message. I'm sorry, I had a question there. I'll get you in. It was someone.
I had basically the same question.
Oh, okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think the bigger question is the discipline to follow this process through, because I see this as a good first conversation, but there's probably a lot of organizations that this should just be the first conversation.
Yeah.
But I see this first conversation happening over and over again. I've had this conversation with my senior management and our whole county senior management several times, and that becomes the end of it. Part of the problem being those reality statements that you're talking about seem like barriers as opposed to something to be worked through. So yeah, I think pushing this through the whole conversation is where a lot of us are falling by the wayside.
Yeah, and I guess 2 parts. That the reality statements were kind of here to let us know that these are the things that we're dealing with. And you can certainly list a lot more things, but what's really important is finding what's important to your organization, deal with those things. That's what the reality statements for, because there's so many threats out there, we can't cover them all. We're undermanned, understaffed, so find what's important and protect that.
Well, and I think the reality statements are reality, and that's why you have to have them. Yeah. It's like keeping your kids safe or whatever. You can't not tell them you can't cross streets and et cetera, et cetera. If you tell them that, it's going to scare them, but you can't not say it and have them get hit by a car. So you can't not have the conversation, but at the same time, many times it becomes a barrier, and then money and staff is the other.
That's true. And I would also encourage, if you want to increase awareness, create a cross-functional group of people you maybe have relationships with initially, and have it quarterly where you just kind of talk about security issues. And what you have to do are find champions in departments to start trumpeting and talking about the challenges with security. If the department head listens to this person, that's an influencer, and you want to leverage that person. So, and having that dialogue, you understand, and so let me give you this example. Our risk auditor is paying for my security assessment. I ran out of funds, he had money, he volunteered, we had a lot of conversations, and he's paying for it. And that's because of the dialogue we've had over the last few years. There was another answer.
Yeah, anyway, I can give you a success story, I guess. I'm in D.C., I'm working for the intelligence community. I work down here doing some private contracting sometimes. And I work at the UNC chapter for a little while. I was given the chance to come down from D.C. to go to Fort Bragg to help the Information Security Awareness Program. Now, their issue is that they had turnover in wartime environment. Kids come in, they'll say, well, what do you know about security? They say, well, I have an Xbox, PlayStation 3, that's about it. So now I gotta figure out how to set a program up that actually trains these people as they come in, not every 6 months. So you mentioned that buy-in from the top was very hard. So when I started, the first thing I did made it easier for me to start doing, using the web, those newsletters. So I put newsletters out saying, this is what happened in security this week, and put it on a more personal level. So-and-so lost his credit card information, or credit cards have been hacked. You gotta make sure people understand how important speaking security is, and then take ownership of their own information, and then they begin to understand what it is to the actual organization. That's the first step I did. That's as far as making people understand what's going on. Those newsletters cost you nothing. Small webpage, flash out to everybody. People look at it. If the right titles on it, you know, so-and-so loses all their money. What are you talking about? And they'll have to look at it. You start raising awareness like that. Now, the whole program, it took me 2 years to get the program going. Really, and get it repeated. When guys will come in, they train them, get the regulations together. Military, these are them projects that military, I'll say, do this, and this, A, B, C, D, and E. They do it when asking a question. They won't do F, G, or H because that's just focus. That's it. But however, private sector and the state government, why am I doing this? I don't care about this. This costs too much money. Government has more money. As long as you pay taxes, they'll keep spending the taxes. So they can focus on that. So, but yeah, the first step, I think, in all things is that newsletter is very important. Get the information out there so people can actually look at it, understand what's going on, and take ownership of it themselves.
And Anthony, you made a very good point. You said 2 years.
Yeah.
It's taken about 2 years for me to start making headway. It's not an easy process. Yes.
We have the same issue that you have, but with all these new requirements out there, and I think a lot of people are facing CJIS, we now have required financial audits. We now have 4 audits that we do a year. Turn those around, and they're not optional. They're requirements. So use that as an advantage when you're facing your management team and say, we don't have an option. We have to put this in, and use it as a strategy. It's no longer, hey, it's nice to put in, but now you have no choice.
Yeah.
And it will work really well. Something that would have taken us 2 years, we turned it around in a month.
Wow, that's good. Where are you from?
Virginia.
Virginia. Yeah, we are getting the same audits, and that was a driver for the segregation duty remediation project because it's identified in an audit. I don't know how that might have grown on the ground if we didn't have that audit and letter there. That would have been very challenging. So it is good. And the other thing too, unfortunately, local government, we don't have a lot of regulatory requirements. Just don't. Not PCI. What else? I know CJIS is coming, but that's the police, right? Or to access.
Well, we're required every year to do a complete financial audit, and there's a lot of requirements that go along with that, and it's getting more and more stringent.
This is true, but let me tell you something that's a good and bad about an audit. Audits are good to get you started, but they don't address your security posture because it's a one-size-fits-all. So they're great for T to get you going in the right direction, but when you still really start getting into the business needs of the department, these are just a set of requirements that someone wants you to comply with. But they don't necessarily address your true security posture because it's not going to reflect what's really going on in your organization. And they are great from that regard. But as you start maturing and you satisfy the audit, if you're looking to just satisfy the audit, you may not be addressing the business needs. Because audits don't really address social media, leaking of information that way.
Well, ours does.
Really?
And it addresses a lot of other things as well. And I think what you can do is tie in all these other avenues that you want into these requirements and push it together to your management as a package.
Our financial audit doesn't
Now,
address
we have
social
to
media.
deal with social media as well.
Well, no, it doesn't. No, we just went through ours a few months ago.
Change control.
Yeah, just change control and some of those things, but not social media. Is anybody familiar with social media being addressed in their financial audit? Shouldn't go through. That's interesting. That's a pretty progressive audit.
The main thing is that you have to have a policy, and it looks at how are you dealing with mitigating social media and how are you controlling it with your users and external. So if you have some of those, I just encourage you to kind of package everything else that you want to accomplish into that whole package and push it together.
Yeah. social media? Could you repeat that,
The main
please?
thing is that you have a policy that addresses how your users are able to access social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter, and what kind of policies that you have in place of who can access that information, and then how are you gonna handle the security part for that whole social media, and then how do you handle the external piece? Mostly it's just that you have to have a policy, and the policy has to have certain social specific points mentioned in the policy.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Okay. And you know, the other part about the policy is, you know, I maybe mentioned this yesterday in class. Please don't put anything in policy that either you can enforce or you won't enforce. It undermines all your policies. So if you take a hard line on something and you know you don't have your organization have team to do it or they won't do it, don't put it in policy. Because you're just gonna undermine everything you've done. Once someone realizes they can usurp the policy, as far as the disciplinary process, they're gonna usurp all your policies. Any more questions? Comments?
Question.
Sure.
You mentioned that you had 5 questions that you used to do quick quizzes.
Yes. Let's see if I can find it. Everyone see that okay? No. Okay. Thank you. Now? Good? So what key concerns do they have towards IT security? And if you want, I can send these out to you. This is important. Number 2 is important. I get the most conversation for number 1 and number 2. Most of the time, I don't even get a chance to get to number 3 because they'll start answering number 3, 4, and 5 for me. It's really a good conversation. If you go to them and say, I'm asking you a question and you shut up, they'll talk generally. And I found that to be the case. So try not to dictate the conversation and try to let them talk. And I just shut up and type. And then I may ask things.
Sorry, Trevor. Regarding number 2, and I guess in specifics, we are revising lots of policies as we always do, as living documents. And one thing we're facing now is integration into the onboarding and termination process for employees. So how did you handle those 2 pieces, and were you able to, did you tailor the onboarding process based on jobs, things like that, regarding security awareness?
No, so the onboarding process is a generic, spew, and that's what I'm working on right now to start getting it more engaged with them for that, and that's something I kind of recognize that we just weren't doing a good enough job of onboarding. So one way I've found is some of our departments had their own training, so I'm going to work with them, and they like to train their own staff and include it in their training. Another thing is we have a capital leadership program, which is, managers can go through this training. I'm going to start getting engaged there to help them with the roles and responsibilities for managers. And I'm collecting this information from here because the departments are telling me what they're seeing out. Like public affairs told me that people are usurping the public records request process. It's not going to public affairs. So managers need to know that process. And personnel told me the same thing, or HR department told me the same thing. And HR shared something else with me. So the goal is to capture what I'm seeing out in the organizations, and then including that in the training, especially with managers, and then also with the new employee orientation. The other part that is a gap, this is the biggest gap, is the offboarding. That's just a gap, huge gap. And it's tough to get your arms around it because people are going to get what they need when they come on board, one way or another. It's getting it away from when they leave. So, we're still working Any more comment about these questions? And this is one, I'm struggling with number 5. Anthony made a good point about a web announcement. They are helping me with kind of what they like to see as far as getting metrics back to them. I don't want to put it in a format that's not useful, so they're giving me feedback for that as well. Any more comments? Yes.
What if you work for organizations that doesn't necessarily have a lot of savviness around technology and even these issues at all? I mean, you say not to dictate, but if you're looking at people who don't seem to have a good grasp of that, how would you suggest approaching it?
So, really, the difference between maybe IT security and information security is business focused. So, get their business perspective. They hopefully have an understanding of their business challenges. And if when you find their business challenges, then it's, you can then translate that into maybe technical solutions. So, the way I addressed it when I did security redesign, I interviewed not only business units, but also interviewed staff in the IT department, help desk, network people, network managers, system managers, and then I translated both of those into solutions and solve. So my thing is, I try to implement nothing that does not solve a business problem. Because that can kind of help you dictate solving some of the problems and challenges you're facing. And actually, that's better. I mean, because people want to put, oh, we need this, we need that. They're spewing out technologies. You have to convince them, well, maybe that's not the best technology to fix the problem. So it might be an advantage that you didn't realize. Yes.
But I think that approach is critical, because when I talk to them, I don't even talk about solutions. I just talk to them about the problem. When you start talking to universities and all that sort of stuff, you see the eyes glass over.
That's technical.
Yeah. And I think it's important for us to get away from the whole idea that we're doing things just because IT says do it. That's one thing that I really try to kill in my organization. We're always asking questions, why are you doing it? If it's not going back to the business proposition or the business need, if we can't justify it that way, we don't do it.
And good point. So guess who's helping me lock down my new next generation firewall? Public affairs. Public affairs is helping me lock it down. Because they're telling me, look, we have these set of issues with social media. I said, well, I have a solution for it, but they're dictating to me the challenges, and I'm locking it down. So when I stand before senior management, I can say, well, here's a policy public affairs they wrote. These are the compliance issues they expressed, and this is how we remediate it. And public affairs is my vehicle. I don't have to be the bad guy. That took a while for me to figure out.
You said look for services that offer consolidated, solutions offer consolidated services, I mean, outside of web software and OT or some other.
Oh, man, there's a plethora of those. Firewalls now. Next generation firewalls. Look for solutions that, I got to be careful, I don't know about the vendor thing. I looked for solutions that offer more than one service. And there are a lot of great point solutions out there, but normally solutions that offer more than one service have a common platform that you can leverage different silos and report up to one platform. Also, I tried to look for solutions that are in Gartner's measure, right quadrant, or maybe even visionaries. But Gartner, people have their different views of that. Look for places like NSS Labs that are an independent research firm that takes a thing in a lab and they hammer it. That's another one. I do look for most organizations that offer more than one solution and have a common framework. Any more questions? Great questions, by the way. Yeah. Good question. So I don't know if everyone heard that. The question was, and if I'm wrong, Ms., you can correct me, please. how do you ensure that senior management remain aware that the policy remain effective?
Not so much aware of that, but if I go talk to one department about what their issues are, they're going to give me everything that they're saying. But their prioritization may not be the best prioritization for.
Self-serving. You're worried about the part being
You need
self-serving.
to have some way to bring it all together to make balance.
So what I do in this interview, I tell them at the beginning, I'm looking for commonalities across the organization to focus on. So, you know, if you're out, I won't say left field, but you're kind of by yourself for one issue, and it doesn't impact something that's considered confidential in that category we have, you know, I can justify why it's not included. But if we're hearing the same thing across 3 different departments, then that's a commonality. So I'm upfront with what, you know, what I'm trying to capture and really look for commonalities. At the same time, tailoring it to what your needs are. So that's how I kind of keep that from someone being self-service. And I was surprised. Most departments will tell you up front that this is probably a low security thing, but it's kind of a thing we're dealing with, you know, to a certain extent. So you kind of have to be savvy enough to kind of flush it out of them. But I do tell them that's commonality.
And do you have a list of things that you know they want? It won't come into their minds so that you, after you have their list, you have to put something in that list from an IT perspective. So because it's just not something that they would ever even think.
Yeah, good question again. So a couple things I do before I'll research the department to find out where I'm talking to the department. I also have an initial meeting where I introduce what I'm trying to do and talk about, you know, what we're trying to accomplish, introduce myself, give them an opportunity to think about the questions. Normally there's some interchange at that point. And then when I come back, it's more of a formal environment, well not formal, it's informal, because I like settings, and we talk. And through those things, I normally, then I'll put out feelers out there, or I'll lay seeds to kind of spur the conversation to one way or another, because they may not be thinking about things that are pertinent to the department. So, you know, you have to do your homework a little bit. And I enjoy that. Any more questions, comments? Okay, thank you everyone for attending. Great